most important thing is first impressions. As soon as a visitor comes into our school, they're greeted by a secretary who has a very positive outlook. As visitors move around the school, there are displays and celebrations of children's achievements. The children moving around the school give off a positive impression because of the ethos that has been created by every member of staff in the school, and I think that's felt by visitors, children and staff.
I think the first and most important thing is to find out about the community it serves, because schools have a role in the community, and I would say find out what the cultural makeup is of that community. I'd find out what different cultures are within the school. For example, in my school there are 33 different languages that are spoken within the school. Finding out different bits of information about different cultures that would affect names, for example, and pronunciation of names is a really important factor, because essentially whether you're a student and you're visiting there for 6 weeks or 12 weeks or however, you are part of that school, and students need to recognise that in order to trust you. Another one is the expectations of the school. What are the core values of the school? What is important? What has happened before you arrived? What kind of things what are the key things that the school is driving towards and moving towards? The behaviour policy, obviously, so what happens, what is the agreed behaviour policy with all of the other staff, and with how's that been introduced to the students? I would identify some key people who manage behaviour, like the year heads or student achievement coordinators. I would seek them out and look and watch them, observe how they manage behaviour, because everybody experiences the same issues most of the time, and there are strategies to use them, and all you've got to do is to learn to use that strategy.
There's going to be a whole raft of support. I think the problem lies in that people don't take advantage of that. It can be very easy to think, I'm nervous, I'm not dealing with this situation, I'm not coping with this particular behaviour, and become very insular and isolated. When actually, even from NQTs to most experienced teachers, everybody needs a helping hand. Everybody needs to lean on everyone else at some point. If you have an issue, you might just want to go to another teacher and say, well, you know, what are your issues with this particular student? I'm having a problem. What are your strategies for dealing with this? Don't be afraid to ask people. Teachers with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years experience will still go to another member of staff and say, how do I deal with this situation? I'm having trouble here. Can you recommend any strategies? You're not a failure. That's just school life. That's how we deal with it.
You're not going to be criticised for asking for help. You could be criticised for not asking for help and letting something escalate. Often people do feel that they're a failure if they ask for help, or I'll be seen as not being able to cope if I ask someone for help, whereas in reality that's not actually the way schools work. Many primary schools and secondary schools now are also getting learning mentors as well, who are specifically trained in behaviour management strategies, so they'll be able to offer you some advice as well as support on individual children with behaviour issues. They'd be able to give you some support. The SENCO also would be a good port of call. The SENCO also has access to outside agencies, so maybe in the more extreme cases the SENCO would organise a referral to behaviour support or to a paediatrician.
When you're coming into a classroom as a new teacher, whether it's you've just joined the school or you're a training teacher, is that inevitably in that class you're going to have some kind of teaching assistant support. You know, you are a professional team and you work together with these children.
I remember when I was training, you know, the number of times you made a gaffe, and you just have to move on. And I think if you've got a supportive mentor or somebody in the school, it doesn't have to even be the mentor, that you talk to and say, that didn't really work. And even if it's the class teacher, that would help, because they will tell you, I know little Johnny, little Billy. This is how they play up in this situation. And then you plan your lesson appropriately to manage that. You go in and you be this big, firm, scary person, or you've got to be this whiz-bang, you know, snazzy teacher. And I think over time you learn whereabouts on that scale you are. And I remember my sort of mentor when I was training, she said, I asked two guys who were in about the 4th year of teaching, you know, have you got it cracked now? And they said, well, I basically can be me in the classroom now. Where beforehand they were pretending to be Mr. Jones because he was scary, or Miss Phipps because she was the sort of cool teacher. And I think you kind of find out where you want to be, and then it becomes natural.
You're not afraid to ask for help from somebody else who might have something that will suggest that you don't have to find all the answers on your own, because nobody has them.
I think most schools have one or two people who will be really helpful when you speak to them. Even if it's, if it's your mentor, great. If it's not, then, there might be a young teacher you get on particularly well with, or an older teacher who's really sort of helpful and, supportive. Somebody who's going to be there to listen and bounce ideas off. Or your peers, I used to do that, go down and have a chat in the cafeteria after, if we had a lecture, and say, look, how did that work? How are you finding things? And I think that helps a lot as well.
Yeah, we had a lot of trainees when I was on placement. There was about 13 of us from different universities, and it was great to go and see them teach, because they struggle with the same things that you do, and between you can have that really safe conversation of what can we do to make it better, and try things between you, which is really helpful.
I think you've got to make, especially secondary, it's probably easier because you've got a big school, a lot of students. I trained in a middle school, but then I was also in a small primary. And you're the one student, you could be plopped in I was in a small village school, and 70 children, 3 teachers, and if you're not sort of self-motivated, or you go for help, you can feel a little bit isolated. Don't think you're the only person going through it, because everybody is, and it will, it does improve, and you learn an awful lot in the year, but you learn a lot more when you're in NQT, really, I would say. I think that's when your real learning starts, isn't it? So don't panic.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
The Handbook, Key Questions in Behaviour, a resource for initial teacher training students, their tutors and mentors, is available to accompany this DVD. Please visit the Behaviour for Learning website for more information. www.behaviourforlearning.ac.uk